Today's edition of the Jesus Passage Communique brings us to Jesus Passage number 2. And the question I would like to address is, can I really trust the Jesus story? Can you trust what is written in the Bible about Christ and to build your life around it as if it really is accurate and you can have full confidence in what God says? In the second passage, we look at what Luke says to Theophilus. Luke is writing his story of Jesus, the gospel, as a treatise to a friend named Theophilus, who is an honest seeker of the truth. And in the opening passage of passage 2, Luke turns to Theophilus and he says, Theophilus, I want you to know that what I am writing, there are many eyewitnesses to it. In fact, he says, I have done very careful investigation to discover the facts for what they are so that I could record them accurately for you in my gospel. Actually, when he writes the book of Acts, the history of the church, he uses language very similar. He says, I want you to know that many convincing proofs about the resurrection of Christ have come to me, and I've recorded them for you to know. Luke was a physician, we're told by Paul in the book of Colossians. Maybe he was the medical doctor that assisted Paul in his many travels. As well as sharing the spiritual needs for Paul, he also shared the physical needs. Being a doctor, he was a scientist. He was a seeker of what was true and what was accurate. And when Luke wrote his gospel, he wanted Theophilus and he wanted you to know that he has done everything in his power to make sure that he gave you an accurate record of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. My friends, if you ask Luke, can you trust the Jesus story? His response would be absolutely. And my friends, every time you open the Bible, every time you work through the Jesus passage and discover the truth of what Jesus said and who he is, have full confidence in your heart that it is true and it comes from the very heart of God. I think the big question for you and for me is, do I allow this to be true in my life? Do I recognize that the Word of God, the story of Christ, has the ultimate answer for the questions that I have in life? And as you go through it, I think you'll understand that it is true, whether some days you accept it or not. I remember one time being the host in a home of a man who was a Gideon. You know Gideons, you see their Bibles in motels and hotels and doctors' offices. This man was late coming home that evening, and when he got home, he told us an incredible story. He said he and a group of others had these stack of Bibles, and they were placing them in motel rooms where sometimes they would be lost or people would take them home to use. And a man came to the door and said, Sir, are you responsible for this Bible in my hotel room? And he said, Well, yes, we are. He said, I need to talk to you. He said, I'm supposed to meet my secretary here in a few minutes. And when I walked in the hotel room and I saw that Gideon Bible sitting on the table, I realized that I could not go through with this and violate the relationship I have with my wife and my family. That Gideon took that Bible and helped that man understand the story of Jesus in a personal way so he could trust him and become a follower of the Lord. My friends, as I heard that story, I thought to myself, if the Word of God is powerful, sitting on a bedstand closed, how powerful can it be in my life if I open the words of Jesus and allow them to change my soul?